Welcome to Cybersecurity Sense, a weekly podcast providing updates and insight into the latest in cybersecurity. Brought to you by LBMC Information Security. Now, here's your host.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to LBMC Information Security Cybersecurity Sense. This is William.parks. We're back here with another awesome episode. Lots of fun things to talk about today. We got a great kind of feedback from the last little episode that we did about PCI stuff. So we figured, you know what? Let's make this a monthly thing. So every month we'll be releasing some awesome PCI content for everybody. And today we have the same two fantastic gentlemen back here with us. So without further ado, we'll get started with the episode and we'll just kick it right off. All right, Andy. Hey, Kyle. How's it going, guys?
It's going pretty good.
Will.
Good. All right. Man, what a time. What a time. We love PCI stuff. And I'm still learning constantly. It's never failed to excite. So I guess we'll just kick some stuff off here really fast. Last time we didn't really talk much about anything other than the conference, correct? Just kind of talked about the conference that happened up in Toronto, I believe it was.
Yep.
And so I guess since there's nothing like that that's happened since, I don't believe, we'll just hop straight into a couple little news items, then we'll start to hit some other things. So what's going on in the PCI realm?
Sure. One of the big pieces of news that has been over the past several months is the PADSS, Payment Application Data Security Standard, for anyone who uses that, has actually hit end of life as of September. So if anyone is out there using, any PADSS certified software solutions, a lot of times you might see them in retail locations. Best thing to do is to go talk to your vendor and ask them, like, hey, what's your plan now that, PADSS is kind of end of life? There's a new standard out there called the Software Security Framework that kind of mirrors up and does a lot of the same things as the PADSS did. And that's an option, but, just best to be ahead of it and ask your vendor, and also probably talk to your acquirer, your bank, tell them, hey, we're using this. What's the ramifications? That's the best thing you can always do.
For sure. And so the software security framework, I'm guessing that's been around for a while, or is that something that's new?
It's still fairly new.
Yeah, almost right off the conveyor belt, so to speak.
Right, hot off the press. So awesome. So PADSS has hit end of life. You said end of September. Is that okay? Perfect. All right, guys. So make sure you go ahead and get that covered, everybody. Don't miss that. PADSS. What else is kind of going on? Anything else?
One thing I had noticed is, every month, PCI Council, they release their newsletter that, QSAs and other individuals get. And one of the things they have always is their FAQ of the month. And if you go look on the PCI website, you can see all their FAQs. It's an awesome source. A lot of times if you're asking us QSAs questions, odds are we might just be, kind of parroting back what the FAQs say. So if you don't know something, the FAQs are an awesome place. But I like the one they had is a compliance certificate, a valid form of showing your attestation. And I'm sure Andy has run into this too, where you have a service provider and they have something that looks like kind of what a kindergartner might get with like a fancy gold star. Hey, I'm PCI certified, and that's the thing that the council does not appreciate.
No, I've seen this quite a bit in I hesitate to say quite a bit. I want to say over the past 6 to 7 years that I've done PCI, I've seen it a handful of times, whereas it's not an attestation of compliance, which is what you're accustomed to seeing to anybody that has gone through the PCI process. It's this, to Kyle's point, this fancy little certificate that, hey, we're good. I'm like, no, this doesn't work. No. So now, obviously, we use a little bit more tact when we talk to our customers, but this is something that is very relevant for our clients out there. Hey, these little certificates, and again, you don't see them as much as you used to. People have gotten on board with making sure that they have the proper documentation. But if any company offers you some sort of certificate that says, hey, you're PCI compliant, or you're good to go, or you can provide this to your folks. No. You have to provide an attestation of compliance.
Right. You have to have the legitimate statement of this is fully compliant, not a little certification that's kind of like, oh, look, I did this.
That's just it. And like the attestation, all of that, it comes straight from the PCI Council. It's their documents. Even as QSAs, we can't really edit them. We just fill in the details, the information, but the format and all of that, that's defined by them. And they don't like people coming in and trying to have their little, PCI certified type certificates. So yeah,
Right.
that's a thing I think they hit fairly often, that they don't like those. And so I noticed that as one of their FAQs of the month, and I just thought it was a good one to hit.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, that's a pretty big piece of news right there. Definitely a good reminder for those who don't know. Oh man. But if you don't know, that's totally okay. That's why we're doing this. That's we're all here to learn together. So I guess after that being stated too, we just want to remind everybody that 4.0 is still live. It is live. Um, and it's required. When do you have to be 4.0 compliant?
So that's a great question. So right now there's still some time. So everything is not going to go into effect until March of 2024. So there's definitely time, but to a degree. So if you really think about it right now, if you have already finished your assessment for 2022, you'll probably only have like one more assessment in 2023 before 4.0 actually goes into full effect.
Right.
And then even then, there's going to be quite a few requirements that are not going to go into effect until March of 2025. So yes, there's some time, but don't wait to the last minute. It's definitely right around the corner.
Yeah. The sooner
Perfect.
you can get on that, the better. That's always right now for the past next 18 months. That's probably something Andy and I are going to be saying to all our clients and anyone that we talk to. Like, get ready for 4.0, because if you're just reading about it in 2024, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Got to be ahead of the curve. Got to be ahead of the
Yeah.
curve, and got to get ready for it. So, I guess is for the show, everybody. We're going to kind of format this a little bit different. So we're going to have a couple different sections that we talk about, and I probably should have mentioned this at the very beginning of the episode, but that's perfectly fine. We're going to hit news. So every time we have an episode, we're going to talk about the latest and greatest stuff in the PCI realm and everything's going on in the glorious world of PCI, and then we'll hit essentially like a main target portion of the episode where we just kind of talk about what we really want to focus on for the day. What do we really want to help people understand? Then we'll have a little Q&A, which don't forget you guys can submit questions or whatnot via, I would honestly, truthfully, through the reviews or anything that you would like to do. Don't forget to give us a review because that does help us. And then after that, then we kind of wrap things up. So we'll have a nice little general overview of everything throughout every episode here, so you can kind of get a better understanding or knowledge base of what's really going on. And honestly, maybe you can surprise your employers. Maybe you know a little something new that they didn't know, or maybe if you're a company, you're trying to stay compliant, maybe you learn a little something here too. So as for that, we're done with the news section. Now we're going to kind of hop into the main point, the main meat of what we really want to talk about today. And so from what I'm hearing, or what I'm seeing here that we have is what should an entity do to support their QSA completing an executive summary? Because I know that's something a lot of people go through and they have to do.
Yeah, and Will, so Kyle and I had kind of discussed this, and what we wanted to do is offer, and we'll do this kind of as we move through the different requirements, is that we wanted to talk about the challenges that we see in some of our clients, or some of the difficulties in filling out certain things in the or providing information to the executive summary, but also we're also going to be hitting on some 4.0 things at the same time. So there'll be a little bit of a crossover here. But I think, and I want to say that, when I've done consulting, when I've done, PCI assessments, then, I always get the question is, what is the number one thing? And I even got this in a talk I did at a university, is that what is the number one thing as far as information security do you think any entity needs to have a tight grip on? And I get a laugh, but I say inventory. Inventory's number one. And it's always why. Oh, why? What about this? And then what about this? And this. If you don't know what you have, how can you protect it?
That's
And you
true.
don't know what you don't know. If you don't have a
Yeah.
tight grip on your hardware and software, then there's no scoping. There's nothing else that you can do if you don't know what you have. And so, as far as that is concerned, when you are, and again, we're talking about details here. I don't want to give this generic uh, view of things and then nobody has anything to tightly grip on. When you are sitting down to prepare for your compliance and you're ready to go, one of the first things you need to sit down with is you need to say, all right, our inventory, what does it look like? Do we have, and especially smaller entities, this is a little bit easier. But the bigger you go, the harder this is. We need to get all the different departments together and ask them, as far as PCI, do we have a good listing of everything that we are supposed to have for inventory? Number one.
Yeah, I would agree
And
with that 1,000%. A lot of times in assessments, that's the biggest sticking point, trying to work through scoping
mhm,
and just figure out what is actually in scope. And then you're getting into interviews and all of a sudden someone brings up, a SQL database and it's like, that's not on your inventory. You didn't tell me you had databases, and so, that's to your point, Andy. I think I agree. That's the number one thing. The biggest thing anyone can do to help themselves and help their QSA is just have an inventory.
and this should be something that we always ask for right up front. I mean, this comes up with, before we even do any kind of scoping, we need to have an inventory. And now 4.0, there is going to be a review of all your hardware and software. You need to do, as an entity, every 12 months, you need to be doing a review of your inventory hardware and software. So you need to know what you have, you need to know what's running, what version of that is running, and you need to be able to say, all right, hey, our PCI compliance is up, coming up here in about 2 months. Let's make sure we have our list together. So it's just a matter of, here you go, QSA. Here's what we got.
Right. So do those inventories also include like network diagrams or data flow diagrams too, or are those two separate things?
So Kyle, you can weigh in here. In my opinion, the inventory needs to be completely separate. It needs to be, all right. That's what leads you down that path when you are working towards compliance. Inventory first. Know what you got. Then that's going to lead you to down the path of, okay, well, now that we have our inventory, what of this inventory is in scope? Okay, now we know what the scope is. Okay, now
Mhm.
let's create a diagram that makes it. So it takes you down a rabbit hole. And
Right.
these are critical things that folks struggle with in details. I mean, it really is challenging for some people.
Yeah, and to Andy's earlier point about what 4.0 is forcing, is right now everyone should be taking care of their own scope and understanding their own scope. But the honest truth is, we all know a lot of people kind of rely on their QSAs to help them with that. And during an assessment, kind of going through and looking at scope. But really, a QSA's job is to validate scope. When we come in, scope should already be defined, and that's one of the sticking points that 4.0 is coming out with, really making it so that an entity has to determine their own scope. They may have a QSA come in and help them, but it would be outside of an actual assessment, and making sure they have that detail down. And that scope documentation would likely include most of all inventories, but then to your point, Will, it would include also making sure you have network diagrams, data flow diagrams, and all of that to paint the picture of your scope. So that way, when you have an assessment and your QSA comes in, they should be able to look at all of that documentation, talk to you, and confirm that, yeah, that's your scope, and not have to determine the scope themselves.
Right. Right. So I'm guessing that even just having that alone, because I know that for us, I don't like to talk a whole lot about what I necessarily do because I'm penetration testing,
Mm,
but they do kind of go hand in hand because we do PCI penetration tests, right?
yep.
So I do know that inside of PCI that fits somewhere into the category, right? And so I know that there are vulnerability scans that have to happen. And there are certain things that have to have ongoing evidence. Hey, we are watching your systems. Hey, we're keeping control of all that stuff. We know what's going on. Um, but as far as this little portion we're talking about, does pen testing or vulnerability scans, any of that kind of fall into there too? I'm guessing you have to show evidence of all that stuff.
It's actually really critical to some degree, as far as the back right to inventories, because you need to have a solid inventory of all your systems. Otherwise, if we look at a vulnerability scan and it's missing systems, all of a sudden those systems aren't compliant. Or for penetration testing, if you don't have a solid inventory and you don't know all of your IPs and you have a pen test that's only performed against half your environment, that's not a valid pen test for PCI. And then all of a sudden you're struggling. So making sure that you actually know what's in scope is critical for those pieces.
Yeah, and I would say a detail is, yes, it goes beyond, this is the device, this is the operating system, this is the IP address or MAC address or whatever it may be. We need what it does. And I know that
Yes.
seems like
Ooh.
a crazy thing, but this, you got to think, a QSA, we're coming into an environment that we have been working on, for 10, 15, or even 2 years. This is in some cases, this is brand new to us. So we need, again, this helps with penetration testers too. Again, I used to be a pen tester before I became a QSA, and knowing what I'm going after. So, for instance, case in point, hey, here's our inventory. It's detailed. this is what these devices are. This is what they do. Okay, great. This is going to help us set our scope. Okay, that's great. This is going to help us set our diagrams. And then, Will, to your point, hey, our penetration testers, they're doing something, before the PCI assessment. They need to know what they're looking at and what they're attacking. You don't want to be
Right.
attacking. So wait. This is not on the inventory, or you know what? We need to steer clear of this. This is an older version of an FTP, server or something like that.
I mean, true. I mean, to the same point too. If you give us an invalid scope for a penetration test, that can invalidate results. We're gonna have to go back and
Yeah.
redo it again just to validate and make sure, hey, this is actually what's here, and this is what we see and what we don't see. It's a very black and white thing. There's no gray area. We have to see it or we don't.
That's just
So
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and so
And I think this kind of brings us to our kind of next point here, is that we're talking about inventory, we're talking about scope, and then when I tell you diagrams, diagrams. In the executive summary, I cannot hit this hard enough. And there is a misunderstanding of what the diagrams are supposed to have in it. There are actually supposed to be 3. And a lot of times we get 1. I don't know, Kyle. I'll get a card. I'll get some sort of convoluted card holder data flow diagram. I'm like, what is happening here? There really should be a high level network diagram, a detailed network diagram, and then your card holder data flow diagrams. So for every channel you have, and I prefer it this way. PCI does not say this specifically, so I'm not speaking for them. I would prefer a separate card holder data flow diagram per channel, because what that allows you to do is it allows you to add in some details, and it allows you to offer a bulleted list of a narrative. What is happening here? Here is our card holder data. I mean, here's our person at a card swipe at a store. They swipe that card. What is being captured there? I ask my client. I have working sessions with clients. Right, what's being captured there? Is it the full cardholder data? Is it the expiration? What is actually, put a little detail in there of what that is, and then is it encrypted? Is it unencrypted? And follow the path as it moves along. This is so pivotal into understanding and it saves time on the back end instead of your QSA. Hey, okay, so that's great. What's being captured here? What's going on here? Is this unencrypted? Is this an encrypted tunnel, or is this an encrypted data? So, managing the TLS 1.2 connection and the data's encrypted. So these things are important to kind of call out in that narrative.
That's a good point too. And a thing I think a lot of people miss is on a diagram, they'll have, pictures of servers or whatever with lines between them. And they might have on the server, like, hey, this is a Windows whatever box, and this is a Linux whatever box. And then they just have all these lines. But for us, more often than not, that line is the critical part. That's what we really want to understand. What data is actually going across that line? How is it getting from here to there? Is it going through firewalls? Is it just going directly? Is it encrypted? Is it a VPN tunnel? Those lines a lot of times are more critical than the boxes that they're going and connecting to. And also which directions, are they bi-directional? Is it just going one way? All of that is really critical and a lot of times left out on diagrams.
Yeah, it seems like a funny thing, oh, well, it's just an arrow, yes. But that card holder data is only going one way, unless it's coming back for some whatever reason. And so you'll get on there and you'll see these kind of bi-directional arrows, and you're like, oh, so it's coming back? No. Then why does it have bi-directional arrows here? It seems like these little things, detailed network diagrams. It is so critical. Show where those subnets are. Here's the subnet for our card holder data environment. Okay, that's great. What is segmenting that off if their segmentation is in place? Okay, well, where's the firewall? Where's the firewall at? That needs to be shown. Okay,
right.
these and labeling these areas. This is secure cardholder data environment. This is our non-secure. Reflecting all these different pieces into this kind of detailed network diagram is critical, because what we do as QSAs, we'll have our inventory up here, we'll have our network diagram here, and then we'll have our cardholder data flow diagram. And then, so as we're walking through our scoping, we're going, all right, well, I see this over here in inventory. Where's that at? Okay, here it is in this channel here in the cardholder data flow. Okay, where is this in the detailed network diagram? What subnet is this sitting? Is this in a protected? Is this unprotected? And this is how we kind of correlate these things. So this is why it's so critical: inventory, good scoping, make sure you know what you have, and then good diagrams. This is all part included in the executive summary component, as well as other
Right.
pieces throughout the rock.
Right. So I guess a great takeaway would be whenever you're making your diagrams, make it like a story. You guys are just trying to find out the story of what's happening, how things are
Yes.
working together. Think of it as, instead of just drawing out and visualizing a logical flow of things, try and make it so, hey, let's understand. And if I were to look at this, I could tell this to someone else and I don't even know anything about it. I shouldn't have many questions. I should be able to read it, see it, and be like, okay, that's how that works. Perfect.
Exactly.
And
That's awesome. Sometimes you'll get like a data flow diagram with, swim lanes or something like that, or 1 2 3s, and all of that
right,
detailed out with a key. And when you see that, I think to myself, these people know PCI, they know what they're doing. And it gives me some level of confidence that you're going into it with the understanding that you're working with a team that really knows and understands PCI, and it's going to be a good assessment.
Right.
absolutely.
Right. I mean, this is even mission critical, guys. If you're trying to get this done quick or faster, this definitely helps you a lot. So maybe keep that in mind while you're making it next time. It may take an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it may take you, but it'll help you in the long run quite a good bit, to put these
And I
extra
will say
details.
is and I would love to get to the point where all my clients, I no longer have to do working sessions with the diagram folks, because these are the challenges that you run into. It's like, oh, okay, we don't have the complete diagrams. All right, well, I need this. Well, I can't get started unless I have it. And this can
Right.
really push a project. And so what I would recommend, and I know to some degree, if I'm not mistaken, we do some, hey, we can offer guidance and direction or working sessions to help you, like almost like a diagram consultation type of thing, to kind of help
Mhm.
you. Let's put these diagrams together, let's walk through it together. So again, another thought just to kind of help anybody out there that's kind of looking for some assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
that's
even beyond just that, sometimes I feel like the issue at hand is you have your, kind of your security and compliance folks, and they think about PCI and whatnot, but then you have your network engineers, and they're making changes and doing things. And it's not until we're all on a call during the assessment that all of a sudden the network guys are like, oh no, we changed, these Cisco's to Palos, and now we need to update that diagram. And it seems like half the time you get off a scoping call, it's like, oh yeah, that all makes sense, but we just need to update this, that, and the other. And if they would have
Right.
just had a call, together, and actually, had those responsible parties have a little short discussion before the assessment, that would have been easy peasy taken care of.
Agree
right.
100%.
Right. And I mean, even
100%.
to that point, you know, you kind of hit it right on the head, but the team and the role and individual that are responsible for doing these things, you know, like you were saying, that's a big point. You need to know who does what, and I'll let you guys talk further into that. But it's very important to
Yeah.
understand that, right?
That I've had in the past, none of my current clients. So if any of my current clients are listening, it's in the view. But I've had clients in the past where I've been on a call for well over an hour before they finally identified the correct individual who needed to talk to a specific point. And it's just playing phone tag up until then. Like, hey, maybe we need to get Bob on the call. Oh no, Bob doesn't know. He's not the guy who does this. Now we need Mike. Oh
Yep.
no, it's not Mike. It transferred to Sarah. And then finally, after 4 people in, you finally get the answer you need. And that's where, if you just document some of this and remember, like, hey, AV is these people, development is these people. Knowing those teams and roles and who should be taking responsibility will make your life so much easier.
Which brings us to another 4.0. So in every section, in every requirement in 4.0, it is now you must document the roles and responsibilities of those that are responsible for those particular sections. It's got to be in there now. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's not going to be any more question of, hey, and now obviously most people are going to put what that position is. This will be such an. I mean, it's not going to be, hey, Bob is in the policy now, so you got to do a revision every time when Bob leaves. But it's going to be one of those situations to where, like, this position or this group is responsible for requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3. And so it'll be much more definitive. And it really does, to Kyle's point, and that example is dead on. I've heard that many, many times. This is going to cut down on the he said, she said, we're responsible for this. No, it's definitive. This is the group. These are responsible. When it's time for the validation, these are the folks we need to have on the call.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, that feeds straight into as well. I mean, we're just kind of hitting all the awesome points right here, guys. Making sure you're maintaining your policies, procedures, and other evidence too. As far as just talking about 4.0, everything feeds straight in, and make sure you have everything lined up and ready to go. And don't just review your PCI documentation right before you are going to have your assessment. You need to you need to look at it regularly. I understand. I'm a procrastinator, everybody. I get it. But whenever it comes time for this kind of mission critical stuff, you need to make sure you're on top of your game. You can't just
Yeah.
slack off on this.
When we come in and do a PCI assessment and we request documentation, odds are that's going to be more or less the same documentation you're going to need to provide year over year over year. Even moving into 4.0, for the most part, it's going to be the same. And just using those as actual working documents, that's the idea behind them. And they're not meant to be, here's the stack of documents you give your assessor to get them off your back. These are the working documents you should be using throughout the year to actually, perform processes and adhering to policies and using them that way. And then, somehow tagging them as like, hey, these are our PCI things. When we have our next assessment, just go make sure these are all good, all updated, hand them off. That's some of the things that can make your life so much easier than, we're asking, where's your data retention policy? And then again, you're chasing that down, trying to figure out, is that something owned by finance? Is the accounting? Is that the legal team? Do they have that? Having some of that just known, is so much easier than, again, playing, chase and, trying to find that white rabbit.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm a big procrastinator, but here's the way to get ahead of the curve, guys. Throw some reminders into your calendar, put them in there way ahead of time, block off some time to do it. I can't even explain how many reminders I have in my calendar for things that I have to get done. And so this is one of the things that you need to make sure you do it.
And resources is huge. And I would say, again, I know we're talking about the executive summary. We are talking about providing evidence to the QSA, all that stuff that's going to come up front, though. It's going to be documented in the executive summary. And I would say that because some of this can be quite burdensome, and there's a lot of overhead here. There's a lot of, especially if you're a larger company trying to run down, is to make sure you have those resources. I cannot stress this enough to those kind of either larger or medium-sized companies out there, is that one of the challenges that I see with everybody is we don't have enough time. So those IT security directors that are looking for, hey, we need a bigger budget, you got to have people to be able to run down PCI. And again, this is a way to help them out to say, hey, look, yes, this takes time. This is not just something we can just fly by the seat of our pants and pull this stuff out of nowhere. You have to have dedicated folks that not only create these inventory lists and diagrams, and your network folks and a lot of your other folks are not going to have time while they're doing changes and this and that. They don't have time to keep up with these things. You do need dedicated people that to keep up with your compliance. And sometimes that goes beyond just the governance folks. You need somebody that is ingrained in those groups in order to be able to get that accurate information.
Yeah. And to that point, obviously PCI has a lot of very technical things. And I think sometimes people get hung up more so on that, like what your egress rules are and things like that are, more on the technical engineering side. But at the end of the day, the most important things and the things that tend to cause the most hangups are more of the administrative type things of maintaining inventories, maintaining diagrams, maintaining roles and responsibilities. Doing those things will make your life so much easier. And then the more technical pieces will tend to fall into place more or less automatically.
Perfect. Teamwork makes the dream work, everybody. Teamwork makes the dream work. So that kind of, that wraps up this little section of just the executive summary that we were kind of hitting. And next up, we have some questions that are asked fairly often, if I'm correct. So I guess we'll just run through these. But I mean, first question that we've been asked is, if I use AWS as an example, if I use AWS, am I automatically PCI compliant?
And that's a big
not.
no. That's something we run into all the time. Someone's like, yeah, I have this PCI certified cloud provider or any PCI provider. Just because any service provider, just because they're compliant does not mean you're compliant because you use them. That's not the way that PCI works.
Right. And I mean, PCI, yeah. Go ahead.
And Yeah, with a 3, it really depends on what you have. So if you have an infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or a software as a service, that all changes what your compliance. Your AOC for AWS may cover different things depending on what that is. So, hey, yes, we absolutely 100% are compliant with physically. Nobody's getting into AWS. We've got you covered there. But, as far as the security of who you let in and what you set up, that's all you. Unless you're doing
Mhm.
something more of a more modified where they're doing the updates, they're doing the security patches, they're taking care of all that for you. Then at that point, then yes, that starts to limit what your responsibility is.
Right. So
Yeah.
think of it as AWS as being just another computer you have in your office, but it's not physically in your office. It's still tied to your network, still part of everything that you're running, and all the information is passing through things. But you can't just outsource your PCI compliance to AWS because like Andy and Kyle are both saying, just because AWS is not, or because they are PCI compliant, it does not inherently make you PCI compliant because that's not you. You're just renting a computer from them.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, you
So
can still configure it poorly. That's your option to do so. And to Andy's point, if you pay them to configure it for you, then possibly that falls under their compliance and you're good. But if you're doing
right.
that configuration, you're setting up roles and responsibilities. That's all on you, even though it's inside AWS or any other cloud provider, and kind of the same for any service provider and how you leverage them.
Right. And so I guess following up that really, if you're not automatically compliant with AWS, whenever you use AWS or any other kind of cloud provider, might I add, um, are there are all the firewall and networking requirements automatically a part of this? Like, are they?
That's a thing that I know I've seen people getting confused there. So like, you have AWS and you have rules for ingress and egress, and those are all controls that PCI wants you to see. Like what are you letting into your environment? What are you letting out? And people say, oh, that's AWS. That's not applicable to me because it's handled by AWS. And it might be true that maybe AWS is handling it. If you have them, doing more of a platform as a service, an infrastructure, depending on what services they're all providing, maybe they are doing that for you, but it's still applicable to your environment. It's in place because they're doing it. Like another good one is physical security. Just because you have AWS doesn't make physical security not applicable. It's just covered by AWS's attestation. They're still doing physical security. It's 100% applicable to that environment. You're just not doing it. It's still applicable to your systems that are being protected by someone else.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Well, everybody, that wraps up our podcast for the month of December. Man, what a good conversation. My gosh. We love it. We love it. As per all the request questions, I said leave it in the reviews. Actually, a better thing to do, maybe you can just email us directly. We have Andy and Kyle. So I guess you can hit up Andy at andy.kerr at lbmc.com. You can hit up Kyle at Kyle.Hinterberg at lbmc.com. And if you want to ask me, feel free to ask me, William.Parks at lbmc.com. We'll make sure to get to your answer or get to your questions and answer them on the next podcast, which again will be in 1 month. So stick around. Thank you guys for listening so much to Cybersecurity Sense. We really appreciate the viewership, I guess we can call it. But yeah, I guess that's really it. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Andy, again for another great episode. I know we're all going to love hearing it and learn a lot of stuff from it. Any parting words?
No, I'm looking forward to. I wish that I had something like this when I was first came into PCI to help understand what a QSA is really looking at. So we're going to be breaking down requirement after requirement, one right after the other, and we want to make sure that we're handling and talking and discussing and offering something to those folks out there that are really struggling, or some of those folks that just need some encouragement and reinforcement of what is required.
Yep, I'd say I reiterate that, and happy holidays, and see you in the new year.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you guys in the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, you learned a little bit, don't forget to follow and listen for the next, I guess, release that we have. If you really enjoyed it, let us know in the reviews. Give us a little rating, whatever you feel like doing. But thank you guys again, and we'll see you guys in a month.